Everyone loves some controversy, right? Well, today we'll discuss the top 10 most controversial cards in Clash Royale's history and explore why they have sparked so much debate over the years. Starting off with number 10, we have perhaps one of the most disliked cards in the Clash Royale community. Annoying! That is how most people would describe the Firecracker in one word. Firecracker is a card that offers tremendous value for its low 3 elixir cost, but it also comes with a bit of unpredictability. Her long-range attack and ability to splash damage across troops and towers make her a versatile defender, but she can also help your opponent easily by activating their king tower. The main controversy with Firecracker is her wild targeting. While she can provide excellent value by splashing down hordes of troops, her attacks often miss or fail to hit their intended target due to her pushback mechanic, which can be frustrating for both the user and the opponent. This randomness, combined with her ability to kite troops across the map, has made Firecracker a card that players either love or hate. But ever since the evolved Firecracker was released, people have totally changed the way they used to play her. Despite the Firecracker being a defensive card, her evolved version is mostly used on offense to get some sneaky damage on the opponent's towers. This makes it hard for the player defending, since they need to place their troops very carefully, else risk them getting lined up for a Firecracker burst shot. All of this leads to a very annoying playstyle, which is a major reason for the hate the card receives. Firecracker has seen tweaks to her hit speed and projectile speed to improve her overall reliability in battle. Despite this, her unpredictable attack patterns have remained largely unchanged, keeping her in the spotlight for debates about her effectiveness. She's either extremely good in a battle or totally useless. This makes her a heavy matchup dependent card, which isn't something pro players are a fan of. Firecracker is often seen in Hog Cycle decks, where her ability to defend while chipping away at the tower makes her an excellent support unit. She's also played in some Firecracker log bait decks, where her splash damage can help deal with swarms while setting up for a counterattack. Firecracker is seen as one of the most annoying cards to face due to her long-range attacks and splash damage. Her unpredictability makes her frustrating to deal with, especially when her shots hit troops in unintended ways. Some players enjoy her versatility and the chip damage she can provide, but others feel she's too random to be consistently useful in high-level play. The Firecracker has been a hot topic of debate ever since her release, something she has in common with the next card on the list. At number 9, we have the nasty Elite Barbarians. Upon release, they were initially mocked as an underwhelming card, often labeled a noob choice for low-level players. But everything changed when Supercell gave them a speed and damage buff in December 2016. Suddenly, these fast, hard-hitting barbarians became a force to be reckoned with on ladder, especially for players who didn't have the right counters in hand. The controversy surrounding Elite Barbarians rises from their ability to punish even the slightest mistake. If you overcommit on offense or don't have a good defensive card in rotation, Elite Barbarians can take down a tower in seconds. This led to a lot of frustration in mid-ladder, where they were often over-leveled and difficult to stop without the perfect hand. Over-leveled Elite Barbarians can literally take down anything and require so less skill that mid-ladder players just drop them on bridge. Pair them with a rage spell and put their phone away just to enjoy the absolute chaos they deal. Elite Barbarians have received multiple nerfs to their health and damage after their initial buff made them too strong for their cost. But in the last 3 years, they haven't been touched by Supercell, causing frustration among mid-ladder players. Elite Barbarians are typically found in bridge spam decks or Goblin Giant rage deck, where their ability to quickly cross the bridge and deal massive damage is maximized. They are also sometimes used in split lane pressure decks to force the opponent to divide their defense. Elite Barbarians have long been viewed as a bullying card, especially for mid-ladder players who overlevel them to punish opponents. Despite the nerfs, many players still see them as a card that requires little skill to use, but is difficult to deal with if caught off guard. Others appreciate their ability to quickly punish mistakes, though the card continues to spark debates about whether it's fair. Personally, I think that the idea of Elite Barbarians evolution is something that would send chills down the spine of mid-ladder players. Let's hope we don't have to deal with it anytime soon. In the meantime, let's jump to the next card on this list, which perhaps holds the title for being the most iconic character in Supercell's history. The Hog Rider makes his way at number 8 on this list of controversial cards. This might be a surprise to many, considering the Hog Rider is one of Clash Royale's most iconic cards. But the card has sparked a fair amount of controversy over the years due to its ability to consistently pressure towers. The Hog Rider's direct path to the tower and high speed make it a reliable win condition in many decks, but for some players, this consistency is also what makes it frustrating to play against. Hog Rider decks revolve around cycling quickly back to the Hog, putting constant pressure on the opponent. For players who don't have solid defensive options, the Hog Rider's relentless attacks can feel overwhelming, as he can repeatedly chip away at their towers throughout the match. I can bet that all of you watching have felt the frustration when the opponent's Hog Rider gets an extra hit out of nowhere, or just bypasses your defensive buildings like nothing. Hog Rider has received minor nerfs to his damage and hit points, but his speed and tower targeting ability have remained unchanged. It remains one of the most balanced cards in the game, having not received a single change since 2017. The two most popular Hog Rider decks are 2.6 Hog Cycle and Hog Earthquake. While 2.6 Hog Cycle has remained the most popular deck in the game for the past 7 years, Hog EQ benefited a lot from the new evolutions, which made the deck really annoying. The ability of these decks to cycle their Hog Rider so fast is what makes them frustrating to deal against. Hog Rider is a beloved card for many players because of his simplicity and effectiveness. However, he's also one of the most irritating cards to face repeatedly, as his ability to get consistent tower damage can make games feel one-sided. Hog Cycle decks are especially notorious for their ability to outpace opponents, leading to mixed feelings within the community. Is it about time that the Hog Rider finally receives a new balance change? What do you think? Regardless, the Hog Rider remains a fan favorite, just like the number 7 card on the list. It's very rare that a new card released in the game has sparked as much outrage in the community as the Archer Queen, who comes in at number 7 on the list. As one of the champions in Clash Royale, Archer Queen introduced a new level of power with her unique ability to become temporarily invisible and rapidly fire arrows, dealing devastating damage in seconds. She was extremely overpowered, and her cloaking cape ability allows her to not only evade damage, but also dish out high damage from a safe distance, making it impossible to deal with her if not countered properly. The Archer Queen is controversial because of her immense dual winning potential. She can often single-handedly take down multiple troops and support units without taking damage herself, especially when used behind a tank or in the middle of a big push. Her ability to switch between offense and defense so quickly makes her feel oppressive to many players. Archer Queen was so broken on launch that she received several nerfs within a few days of her release. These nerfs particularly targeted her ability cooldown and hit speed to reduce the overwhelming value she brings to the battlefield. Despite the nerfs, she continued to remain extremely strong, and at one point, every top deck in the game was using Archer Queen. Archer Queen is commonly used in bridge spam decks, where her ability can be used to force the opponent to overcommit on defense. She's also seen in cycle decks such as Hog and Mortar decks, where her versatility and power allow her to shine in a variety of roles. While many high-level players appreciate Archer Queen for her versatility and power, she is often viewed as overpowered in mid-ladder, especially since not everyone has access to champions. Her ability to become invisible and wipe out entire pushes with ease frustrates many, leading to a general sense that she needs further balancing. To this day, the Archer Queen remains a controversial card, as Supercell seems to be torn between getting her another balance change or letting her remain a dominant force. While the Archer Queen is incredibly powerful on her own, the card coming in at number 6 actually sucks alone. But then, why is it controversial? Enter Battle Healer at number 6, a card that introduced a new level of strategy to Clash Royale, healing herself and nearby troops as she attacks. This ability allows her to keep pushes alive for much longer than normal, especially when paired with tanky units like the Elixir Golem or Golem. Her healing effect can turn the tide of battle quickly, making her a controversial card since her release. The controversy surrounding Battle Healer dates back to the early days of Clash Royale. Even when the card wasn't released, healing was considered unhealthy for the game. Supercell, recognizing this, removed the heal spell from the game and added a new heal spirit in its place. But a few months prior to this, they had already released a battle healer who had this unique ability to heal herself and other cards around her every time she hit something. Once she's in a push with other troops, her healing often makes it impossible for the opponent to break through, especially in longer battles where Elixir is flowing freely. Many players feel that she's too difficult to counter effectively, particularly in triple Elixir time, where her healing becomes even more oppressive. Battle Healer has received only one nerf so far to her hit points, which was aimed at making her less overwhelming in large pushes. Despite this change, she remained a powerful force in specific, no-skill archetypes that focus on building unstoppable pushes. One thing to notice here is that the Battle Healer sucks as an individual card herself. It's when she's combined with decks like Elixir Golem and Golem Beatdown, she becomes a nuisance, where her healing keeps the tank alive for much longer than expected. I think we all hate the Elixir Golem Battle Healer deck with all our heart. And if you don't, well, you probably are one of the players playing it. Many players find Battle Healer's healing mechanic oppressive, especially in double or triple Elixir situations where she can continuously keep herself and her surrounding troops alive. While some appreciate the unique playstyle she brings to the game, others feel that she's too powerful in specific matchups and the overall healing ability should never be a part of the game in the first place. But only time will tell how Supercell deals with a Battle Healer. We're already halfway through the list, having covered some truly controversial cards. But what if I tell you that those cards don't even compare to the top 5 of this list? To keep the show going, at number 5, we have the Showmaster himself. Wizard making this list at number 5 shouldn't be a surprise to anybody. He's one of the most powerful splash damage units in Clash Royale, and his ability to deal with both air and ground units has made him a popular card among casual and mid-ladder players. However, this power has also made him controversial, as many players feel that he offers too much value, especially when paired with other cards that distract or tank for him. A well-placed wizard behind a tank can melt through swarms, support troops, and defenses alike, making him a formidable force on offense and defense. But on the other hand, there was a time when the card was literally dead on top ladder. No top player ever used it and there were no viable wizard decks. Well, at least that was the case until the wizard evolution came along and totally shifted the meta. The controversy around Wizard rises from his huge splash damage. He can take out an entire wave of troops, leaving the opponent with little to no counter push if not handled carefully. This power, however, often feels overwhelming to players who are unprepared to counter him, particularly in mid-ladder where the card is often over-leveled. Wizard hasn't seen too many balance changes compared to other cards, though his damage output has been slightly adjusted in the past to ensure he doesn't overpower other splash damage cards. Supercell has made minor tweaks to his hit speed and health to balance his offensive capabilities. But ever since the Evolved Wizard came out, demands for balances have increased from pro players because the card which was considered dead was now one of the best evolutions in the game. Wizard is often paired in Giant Wizard beatdown decks, P.E.K.K.A control, and Royal Giant decks. His ability to wipe out swarms of troops makes him a popular choice in beatdown and tank-heavy decks, where he can sit behind the main tank and provide immense value. Wizard has long been seen as a low-skill card, providing too much value with little effort, especially when over-leveled. Many mid-ladder players over-rely on Wizard due to his effectiveness against a wide range of units, leading to frustration from those who face him. On the other hand, some players appreciate his reliability and utility in countering swarms and dealing consistent damage, making him a popular pick. Even in Clash Royale League, seeing the Evolved Wizard has now become common. Wizard boasts one of the highest usage rates on both top and mid-ladder nowadays, which seems understandable considering the card was quite underwhelming for a long time. Still, the card is extremely broken when it's over-leveled, which is an issue Supercell needs to fix, as the majority of the Clash Royale player base lies within mid-ladder. Many players consider Wizard unfair, but not as much as the next card on the list. Okay, I think I say this for everyone. Elixir Collector is an extremely unfair card and should never have existed in the game in the first place. It's one of the most unique cards in Clash Royale, allowing players to generate extra elixir over time. While it provides a massive advantage if left uncontested, it also creates a huge risk for the player using it, as investing 6 elixir into a non-combative building can leave them vulnerable to early pressure. The controversy comes from the huge elixir swings it can create, particularly in decks that revolve around heavy pushes. Elixir Collector often leads to frustrating elixir advantages, where the player who can defend their collector successfully quickly overwhelms their opponent with powerful pushes. On the flip side, if the collector is countered, it can leave the user in a precarious position, making the card feel very hit or miss. Elixir Collector has received several adjustments to the amount of elixir it generates and its overall health, with the goal of balancing its high-risk, high-reward nature. Elixir Collector is mainly played in beatdown decks like Golem, where the extra elixir is used to create overwhelming pushes. It's also seen in 3 Musketeers decks, where the elixir advantage allows the player to deploy high-cost cards more frequently. Well, since both those decks are quite dead recently, the Elixir Collector is not seen much in the game anymore. But the controversy here doesn't just lie with how broken or bad the card is, it's more about how it ruins elixir counting. Pro players have expressed concerns in the past about the collector messing up with their elixir counting. The fact that the card always gives a positive or equal elixir trade somewhat makes it really annoying for the less experienced players who are not much accustomed to the elixir counting. While some players enjoy the strategic depth Elixir Collector adds to the game, others feel it creates unfair elixir advantages, particularly in high-level play. The card has always sparked debate about its risk-reward balance, with some calling for its removal from the game entirely, while others argue it's an essential part of certain archetypes. Now, we have 3 very controversial cards as our top 3, and the fact that they are all extremely popular win conditions is the reason why the community is always divided about them. Coming in at number 3, we have the extremely annoying Siege building. Is Expo skill, or is it just another brain-dead archetype? Well, I'll leave you guys to decide that, but the truth is, few cards in Clash Royale have divided the community like Expo. As a siege card, Expo's goal is to lock onto the enemy's tower and deal consistent chip damage from a distance. However, Expo's passive, defensive nature leads to long, slow games that many players find tedious and frustrating. Expo players often rely on precise placement and perfect defense to protect their Expo at all costs, while slowly chipping away at the opponent's tower. This can lead to gameplay that feels more like a slow grind than a fast-paced battle. No one wants to face a player who defends all game and just spell cycles in the end. Frustration against Expo stems from the fact that it requires an entirely different playstyle to counter, one that often goes against the natural rhythm of most decks. The last major balance change to Expo came in December 2020. Its damage was increased by 30%, hit points were decreased by 4%, attack time interval was nerfed, and lifetime was changed to 30 seconds. Expo, being one of the only 2 siege buildings, is quite a headache to balance. How would you balance the Expo? Being the centerpiece of siege decks, Expo is paired with defensive cards like Tesla and archers to protect it while it locks onto the tower. A small lock is all that it needs, after which players tend to cycle their fireball in double and triple elixir while just defending. Multiple versions of Expo like Ice Bow, Queen Bow, and Bomber Bow had their own moments to shine throughout the years. But despite so many players thinking the Expo is overpowered, the card hardly ever gets a good finish on top ladder. Expo is arguably one of the most hated cards in the game. Its defensive, slow-paced game style is the opposite of what many players enjoy about Clash Royale, leading to intense backlash from those who face Expo frequently on ladder. On the other hand, Expo mains argue that the card requires a lot of skill and strategy to use effectively, making it a win condition that appeals to more experienced players. Well, one thing is for sure, this constant argument about the Expo isn't ever gonna stop. At least until the time it gets an evolution, which I'm sure will be a nightmare. Speaking of nightmares, the second most controversial card of all time is a mega nightmare. And I actually mean that literally. Well, because no day passes by without someone complaining about the Mega Knight, who is the number 2 card on our list. Perhaps the most hated card of all time, the Mega Knight has earned its reputation for being a mid-ladder player's worst nightmare. His spawn damage wipes out entire pushes, and his ability to leap from one target to the next makes him a dangerous threat on both offense and defense. For many players, Mega Knight feels overpowered because he's able to punish mistakes severely and can easily turn defense into a devastating counter push. When the Mega Knight lands, it feels like there's no room for error, especially if you've just overcommitted on offense. That pressure, combined with his tankiness and splash damage, led to him being overused in casual play for a long time. This, in turn, caused many players to view him as too strong, especially in mid-ladder. Mega Knight is widely seen as a no-skill card because he can turn defense into offense so easily, especially in the hands of less experienced players. His popularity in mid-ladder has only fueled this sentiment. However, others argue that while strong, Mega Knight can be countered with the right strategy and deck building, which is quite true because you don't see him being used at top ladder much. Good players know how to manage their elixir well and are therefore able to counter the Mega Knight with ease. In fact, he can be easily countered by just Ice Spirit and Skeletons. But the interaction is tough and lower level players might find it difficult to pull off. Mega Knight has seen a few balance changes since his release, mainly to his spawn damage and his jump distance. These changes were aimed at making him a bit more balanced in mid-ladder, but the fact is that Mega Knight is an incredibly difficult card to balance. A single buff can make the card too broken in mid-ladder, while a nerf can kill the card at top ladder. This varying usage of the card at different levels of the game makes it hard for Supercell to implement balance changes to the card. In fact, ever since 2018, the Mega Knight has received only 3 balance changes. Mega Knight is a favorite in bridge spam decks where his ability to leap onto troops and crush pushes allows players to keep up constant pressure. He's also seen in Mega Knight minor control decks, using his tankiness to absorb damage while support troops chip away at the opponent's towers. Ever since the Mega Knight evolution was released, players have been more divided over the card than ever. While the evolved Mega Knight appears really overpowered at the first glance, it can still be countered fairly easily if you play right. The main reason for its controversy is the skill gap between the top and mid-ladder players, and perhaps the community will forever remain divided when it comes to this 7 elixir tank. But anyways, without any further ado, let's reveal the most controversial Clash Royale card of all time. Some of you might have not expected this. But wait, just think for a moment here. Imagine a win condition that spawns skeletons randomly. Yes, randomly around your tower. Did it sound stupid in your head? Of course, right? Well, that's Graveyard, and it's taken the crown for being the most unpredictable win condition in Clash Royale. The RNG factor of Graveyard makes it really tricky to defend against, which means some Graveyard pushes spawn more skeletons closer to the tower than others. The controversy comes from the card's unpredictability and its synergy with spells like Poison, which can force the opponent into a difficult position. When used correctly, Graveyard can feel nearly impossible to defend against, especially in combination with a tank like Knight or Giant. The randomness of skeleton spawns has led to frustration from players who feel that defending Graveyard is sometimes more about luck than skill. Graveyard's duration has been tweaked multiple times, with Supercell trying to balance its RNG nature, but with no luck so far. Despite the card receiving adjustments to its placement of skeleton spawns, the unpredictability factor still remains, which is really troublesome for a game like Clash Royale. Graveyard is often used in control decks like Graveyard Freeze or Graveyard Poison, where the player aims to create a strong push with a tank while the Graveyard provides a swarm of skeletons. It's also found in a Giant Beatdown deck, which is considered as one of the most no-skill decks in the game. Some players love Graveyard for its high-risk, high-reward nature and its ability to catch opponents off guard. However, most others dislike the RNG aspect of the card, feeling that it sometimes comes down to luck, whether the skeletons spawn in the right places. This unpredictability has kept Graveyard a heated topic of debate among Clash Royale players for years. The pro scene has expressed some really strong opinions about the card, with the majority of top players disliking the RNG spawn pattern of the card. Well, as of now, there isn't really a way to fix the issue. Or is there? Have you ever wondered why you can't stop playing Clash Royale? Well, you're addicted. And to be honest, it's not your fault. Clash Royale psychologically hacks your brain into playing more. But how? Click on this video to find out.